before Di starts to hit the subscribe button if you'd like to receive notifications about our future videos. And if you like this video, if you can give us a thumbs up, that would really be helpful. And also, if you have any inclination to make a donation, we have links to that also in the video below. Di?
Thank you. Welcome to our first Practical Awakening, which I'm really very, very excited about. And Angie too, I'm sure.
Yes.
We are going to tackle practical aspects of our spiritual journeys. We're all spiritual seekers, and we all, at a certain point in time, come into some obstacles or things that are slowing our progress, or we're not making any progress. It's all down to practical aspects of it, to everyday life. What is it that we are doing every day, hour to hour? That's what makes a difference. So, practical awakening. What are you stuck with? What are your obstacles? And we're going to start with a couple of questions we've already received. The first one is about a discomfort in the chest area while meditating. Now, Anjali, let me ask you first, is this something that you ever came across or experienced?
I have not had any physical sensation when I sit for meditation, so I wouldn't even know how to advise. I would say, though, that if there is a medical issue involved with that, if it's a chronic issue or even acute that goes on, that a trained doctor should be seen. But Di, you probably have some other thoughts about that if it's only happening during practice.
I agree with you that, you have to be very cautious when it comes to symptoms in the chest area. But to say this, if it's happening only, as you say, only when a person is trying to meditate or whatever they call their spiritual practice, then it is connected with turning inwards and actually doing the practice. Now, personally, I can relate to that because when I was starting with my practice and expanding a little bit, going a little bit deeper, I experienced a very, very strong tightness in the chest. And I felt at some points as if my heart was going to explode, and I had to back off and maybe sometimes even take a break and then proceed later on at some different point in time. But let me say this, I learned to embrace it, to open up to it. So when it becomes too much to bear, I sort of back off, I take a break. Otherwise, I accept it, I open and I step into it. And with time and with practice, it actually releases itself because it is a sign. It is a sign of opening up. It is a sign of clearing the space, because the connection with actually pure existence, with a pure being, actually happens through the heart, through the chest area, and it's experienced in that area. So as it might be uncomfortable at the start, persevere with it, open up to it, take breaks when needed and stuff like that, and take it in good faith that it's actually a positive sign and it's actually leading somewhere, and it's actually means that you are able to clear the space from mental concepts more and more and more. And instead of being centered inside your head and dealing with the thoughts, you're actually centered in the chest area, and you're dealing directly with opening up the space, because the connection happens through the chest area, through the heart. I hope that in some way answers this sort of a question. And while being with this question, I also want to touch, Angie, with you these different aspects of meditation, or whatever you call it. I like to call it turning inwards. Like you learned you learned it in a different way. You were not focusing on your chest area, or you did not experience any physical symptoms?
No, it was more absorptive, like submergent into mantra. And it was, obviously from the between the eyes. But that was the focal point that my teacher had given me when I was in my 20s, early 20s. And I've just continued it. But what's interesting is um, I think in some parts, all honesty, I did not practice it with due diligence. But there's not been any, I don't know if there's been progress. Who knows what I would have been like had I not practiced that? It's hard to say. But I do know that it's interesting when I hear other people's experience of practice, they usually have physical sensations and other also like mental or like it's beyond mental. It's sort of like knowing or something coming through. And while I have, you know, occurrences of some of the latter, I really don't have any per se. I don't have any direct experience of that, which is for me interesting, I guess, because I would like to have those. I feel like that's always a sign of progress. But it's interesting then for me just to embrace the fact that I don't have any of those. And that's been a difficult little task for me.
It's this what you just touched on now. I find this very, very important, like signs of progress. Some people are really focusing very much on this signs of progress. And I want to say one thing which I find very, very important. The basic sign of progress, the most important sign of progress is that you're attaching to your thoughts less when you are not officially practicing.
What are the
Because
markers of
this is where
those?
you want to be. This is where you
What
want to
what's the
be.
marker
This
of
is where
that? I
the
mean, how do we measure that when you say we're attaching to the thoughts less? How would I how would I know that? I mean, it sounds like a dumb question, but it's
No, it's a very good question. So what I always suggest is, let's say we throw out this word meditation or whatever, we throw out
right.
any sort of a official standard of what we do when we sit or whatever. And let's say we turn inwards instead of being focused outwards, which we always are. Look at this, watch this, listen to this, think about this, remember this, blah, 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 blah. We turn inwards. And the easiest way to do that is to find the breath. And that's all we do. We find the breath. By doing that, we've turned inwards. It's automatic. And then we couple that breath with the mantra, like Bhutho, in breath, out breath, and we go on. And then, of course, the thought comes, and we are taken by the thought. We go away with the thought. And when we realize that, we look at it, we step into it, and we go on with our breath and the mantra. So we know exactly how often we are caught inside the thoughts. We cannot say, I don't know whether I'm caught inside the thoughts or not, because it's very obvious. Once your
Right.
focus on the breath and the mantra disappears and you're inside the thought, you've been caught inside the thought. And when you realize that, you go back with you look at the thought and you go back with the breath and the mantra. Now, the progression while being turned inwards and sitting is to get less and less caught with the thoughts, to be less and less times when you have to correct yourself and bring yourself back and look in the thoughts, and also to find it very easy to get back into mantra. Some people find it difficult to actually even disconnect from the thoughts. So
Right.
we actually have a very clear indication whether we are progressing with this official part of sitting or not. By the time we're getting caught inside the thoughts, by the time we have to stop that and get back, and by the degree of difficulty, how difficult is it to see the thought disintegrate and get back with the breath and the mantra?
So the sitting part is easy. That's, I guess, been more of my practice. But what I'm finding interesting is now is as much as I thought before that I was carrying it into my daily life, and while I go to work and when I come home and all of that, it's much harder. I mean, do you actually spend your day focused, or I don't even know if it's called focus. Is it more like an ambient awareness rather than a focus? That's another sort of, because it feels like when I'm watching my breath, at some point in the practice, it just becomes like it's doing it automatically. I mean, it's not even a focus for me at that point. It's just breathing's happening. But I
And you
don't find that
focus
in
on the breathing,
the regular world,
and
though, my life. Yeah.
you focus on the breathing, and you follow the breath, and the breath is all there is. Yeah, it has to happen automatically at a certain point. For me, because my thoughts, there is no more attachment for me. So I'm at the different, we are all spiritual seekers, but we're at the different points of our journey.
Mhm.
We're all the same, but the points where we are different. So at my point of the journey, there is no more attaching. So the thoughts are just passing through. They're passing through all the time, but there is no attachment. So my main state of being is actually a little bit inside the stillness. So let's say I'm like this, I'm doing something, and I turn inwards while I'm doing that. A lot of things that I do in life are, and people would be surprised and shocked to realize how many things in life that we do can be done from deeper in, from a point of stillness.
Mm.
Many. So I'm there. I turn inwards. I'm doing something. It's an autopilot. I turn inwards, just like that. And I'm already in stillness. For me, that's just, because I'm more or less in at a certain state of stillness all the time. But now I go even a little bit deeper. So whenever during the day you're doing something, turn inwards, find the breath, whatever you're doing, unless it's something that you have to be, I don't know, mentally engaged, answering some questions or picking up the phone, and you know what I mean? But
Right.
otherwise, just turn inwards. Don't bother with meditation or whatever is attached to it. Just turn inwards, find the breath, and that automatically stills the mind, brings you into a different state of being, and just stay there and do whatever you're doing while being there.
So the question, and I know probably a lot of our viewers have the same thing, they're working, and this might segue perfectly into the next part of the question that our viewer had. So people have jobs and they don't have time. They're answering phones all day, talking to people on, employment sites and whatever. They don't have, or at least they believe they don't have time to be inward focused, to take the time to, turn inward and find that stillness. And it's chaotic work environment, that kind of thing. And I had a job like that, and I was expected to like perform under those circumstances. So it was hard for me even to have a second to even focus on breathing, except maybe when I picked up the phone and dialed a number and I was waiting for someone else to pick up on the other line that I had to contact, and then I could just for 5 seconds maybe focus on breathing. But that was it. Immediately then, um, you're in a work environment. So how would you handle something like that?
I would start with priorities, okay? It might seem now that I'm not answering your question, but I am, and I will explain to you how I'm answering your question.
Mm,
Working in an environment like that and spending the 8, 10 hours or whatever, I mean, people do unbelievable amount of hours nowadays, does not allow you to turn much inwards, as you said. And when you come home afterwards, it takes you a long, long, long
mm,
time to actually disentangle from all these mental
mhm.
jugglery and you know what I mean, thoughts running through and attaching to everything and stuff like that. So everything becomes much, much, much more difficult. Now, this is where the priorities come in. For some people, at a certain stage in their spiritual journey, this spiritual quest becomes one of the priorities. Or for some people, like it was for me, becomes a priority in life. So it is very clear, it is very important to have clear priorities, very clear. This is, for me, it is most important. For example, my priority number one is to keep this job, not your spiritual quest. Okay, so it's clear.
Mm,
Your spiritual quest will be obviously stalled, and we'll have to wait for, maybe another 10 years or whatever, another year, or
right.
you know what I mean, it's was long, till you come to the point in your spiritual journey naturally when your priorities change. And your priority number one is not anymore to keep this job, but it is to advance spiritually, okay? And at that point, you will make changes, practical changes. You will find a job that does not require that much mental jugglery, a job where you can do something left on your own without having to communicate with other people all the time, call or answer questions, or be alert to this or that. Where there is something that is either repetitive or sort of something that you can sink into, that sort of takes over your being, something that you sort of are comfortable with doing, and you can do it from the level of stillness.
Mm,
There are jobs like that. There are jobs like that, but it needs sitting with it. It needs, going a little bit into the stillness and then considering, asking yourself a question: what could that be? You know, there are jobs that are more manual in nature. There are more out, maybe jobs that are done with, as I said, some sort of a periodical sort of an involvement of movement that runs smoothly, that does not need, like people, there are some people who have a workshop, who work for themselves, who sort of do certain things during the day that become automatic, that can be done on autopilot. They have no
mm,
problem with doing it from the point of stillness. I work outside when I work, and I do physical work, like I operate some machines like mowing, this, that. I do some raking outside in the nature. So it does not need any. I can do it from the point of complete
right,
stillness, not just
right.
half stillness, but complete stillness, and so on and so on. Like, for example, I know you create mandalas, and when you do that, when you sort of do that, let's say that this is something that you do and you can make the living out of, that you can do it from the point of complete stillness, almost
Right.
complete stillness. You do not need to be juggling, and so on and so on. I mean, every individual can find ways, if if and when naturally the spiritual development becomes one of the priorities in their life, and it overtakes the
Mm.
priority of holding a certain job.
So this might be a good segue actually to the second part of the question about financial difficulties that our viewer had on the community post, um, about how did they
Yeah.
word it? Experiencing complex financially unstable and life frustrating, basically, uh, issues. So how, like, if you really need money, I guess, or if they're having financial issues, because that does kind of
Look,
take
this is
over thoughts
very
in the mind.
this is a very, very important aspect of life. Very important, because we need the basics. We live in this world. We need the basics covered. What I would do first, I would make this situation that was here described as complex. My first step would be to make it simple and say like this: okay, I need a certain amount of money to have the ends meet and to cover my basics. Now, this amount of money is like this exactly. I would work out pretty much more or less exactly what is the amount of money that I need to get by.
Mm.
Because you always have two things: you have the money coming in, and then you have the money going out. So you have to be very clear of those two, how much it is. So how much it is on one side and how much it is on the other side. And then you take one side and you say, okay, this is the money coming in. Is there any way that I can increase the money coming in? Is that inside my capabilities, or is that a viable option? It can be yes, it can be no. If the answer is no, then you go to this other side of equation and you say, what is it that I can do to minimize my expenses so that they would sort of be in sync with what I get in, and tinker with that.
Mhm.
And be completely open-minded when you do that. What I mean is this: think out of the box. Think even like this: can I change the environment? Can I go somewhere where the life is cheaper? If I rent, can I go somewhere when the rent is much cheaper, even if I need to change the city, or even if I need to go to the country, even if I need to go to the other country, or whatever. Just keep it open. Keep it completely open. Maybe I can change my living arrangements. Maybe I don't need to live on my own or like this, or maybe I can find arrangements where I can share. Keep it completely open, but keep it really, really simple. And it's a practical task you need to do, one side and the other side, and then just work it out and be completely open about it. Make it simple. Things in life have to be simple, and they are simple to be able to be dealt with efficiently. We have to make them simple, and everything can be made simple. It can be. I know sometimes people are overwhelmed
Mm.
and they think it's not possible, but it is possible. And whenever you're overwhelmed, turn inwards, really turn inwards, and face the thoughts that are overwhelming you. While you are sinking a little bit deeper, face those thoughts and try and find some space between yourself and those thoughts. When you turn inwards, find the breath and a mantra, and face those thoughts that are unsettling you. How do you deal,
It,
Angie? Let's put it this
it
way. How do you deal with your financial? I mean, I'm
it's
not
hard to get.
asking any
I
private,
know, yeah.
but just, is it comfortable? Is it strained? Is it tight? Do you have to be careful on both sides? How do you juggle the two sides?
Honestly, like real life, I was working full time at that crazy job, and I quit. I couldn't handle it. It was last October. It was a year ago. And whoops.
Sorry.
um,
You just go on,
and
Angie. I'm with you. I'm with you.
yeah, um, so I quit, and it took me a while to adjust. It was really weird. I really felt like a hamster on a hamster wheel, and it's hard to when you step off. It's all like the world's still spinning because everything was hectic. I worked long hours. I was on call weekends and after hours. It was a funeral home, so you can't say no. But anyhow, so I have learned to live with a lot less. But my life was simple before, and it's gotten way simpler even since quitting. I don't own a lot of clothes. I don't eat very much anymore. Food is becoming sort of just something to put into my body to keep it alive. And that may not be where everybody is. I know I used to cook like crazy, and I loved, Indian food, and I loved baking and all of that stuff. And I did a lot of that before, but that was like another lifetime when my son was younger. And, that's what we did at that point. But it can be simplified, but it's hard to get started, I guess. I don't know where that tipping point was. I think it was for me, I just started to look around, and it just all the stuff around me felt like a weight. It felt really heavy. And I started getting rid of stuff, books, furniture, everything, downsized into a smaller place. And it's just easy when you have a smaller footprint because you can only put so much in it.
You see, it's beautiful the way you put it, because it's a sort of a natural progression, isn't it? It's not something
Mm,
you're forcing on yourself, but a lot of these things are a natural progression through, happening. And it's
I have
not
to
such a huge effort,
yeah.
is it?
Yeah, I have to say I was a minimalist at heart, I think, from a young girl, so that might have helped.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. That's definitely helpful. But it's also helpful, as you said, that things happen naturally, organically, that
They
they are
do.
natural. You just sort of go with the stream in a way. You know what I mean? You're not forcing things on you. You're not forcing some suffering on yourself that you cannot really, bear or deal with, and stuff like that, and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I think some of the ideas I've had to deal with since quitting work are interesting. It's all the standard stuff I was fed, going through college, grad school, that you need to get a good job, you need to earn a certain amount of money, you need to save the money, you need to have X number of dollars put away for retirement, mutual funds, the whole thing. I took it hook, line, and sinker. Um, and then I met a great man and he's like, none of that is necessary. And it's great. I'm free. I'm like free of thinking about that. And I have a certain amount of savings that I've been living on. And when I need to replenish, I'll go back and find a job. And this job will be much in line with what you're talking about, Di. Which brings me actually to another question I have. I've also been fed the line since grad school is that I should be giving back in service based on my capacity. In other words, like sort of intelligence capacity, or what I've learned, my knowledge base. I should be working at that level rather than taking a job like stocking shelves at Costco or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I wholeheartedly believe that the biggest service we can do is a spiritual service, wholeheartedly. And that the biggest help or whatever, service to the society, service to ourselves, service to future generations is spiritual service. And when you dedicate your time and efforts to this spiritual journey and you share this with other people, you spread this
Mm.
within your capacity. This is the biggest possibly, I mean, there is no bigger service than that. And if you do something during the day that is in sync with this service that actually helps you develop yourself spiritually, and then even progress with this service, give back of what you want, you know what I mean, share even more, because you have progressed even more, you have glimpsed even more, you have even more insight, you have even more experience in how to deal with certain practical aspects that are so very important.
Mm.
That just is so much bigger than anything else that you can possibly contribute or give back. Or I really honestly, and please correct me if you can see anything that's more important than that.
No, I can't. It's funny because I feel like in some ways I've wasted the greater part of my life, because I bought all the lines growing up of what I was supposed to do and be and have. And now everything's turned on its head, pretty much. And maybe that's what you're calling like entering the stream. It feels like it's all upside down, you know? I don't feel like talking much anymore. More reading is, I mean, what's the point of reading? I mean, you couldn't find me
Look
without a
up.
book growing up.
Yeah, yeah. I will address both these things that are very, very honestly very important. Number one, there is no waste. Nothing.
Mm,
No moment in life is wasted. No, there is not one split second in life that's wasted. Everything goes exactly the way it needs to go. And everything adds up. You would not be at this place that you are now if you did not
Mm.
go through all the phases that you went through. All those things brought you up to this place now, which is a good place. You've got an opening.
Mm.
You're going in a certain direction. The things are opening up. That's sort of, it's good. Obviously, everything is in progress, which it always is with me, which I might be at a different point in my journey, but everything is progress. Everything is always in progress. We are never reaching the end of anything, and there is no waste. And the second thing I want to say, once from since I've entered the stream, I do not read at all. I do not watch TV. I do not listen to the radio. I look up the world news every day on my phone, which takes me usually 20 minutes to half an hour. I talk very little. I obviously go to work twice a week, which is not a lot. I don't really socialize. I do not have friends, but I never really had friends, so that's not nothing new. But you know what I want to say is, because Angie, everything is on the inside. Everything is on the inside. What is on the outside, it's only a projection as what is on the inside. I know
Mm.
this is just blah blah now. This is just a story, but I just want to explain this why it happens. Because everything is on the inside first, and then it's sort of being projected into time and space and all these that we experience as a physical reality. But it's inside first. So while we are connected
Mm.
with the inside, there is no need, Angie, for any of that because it's all in there anyway, even before it gets out. You know, once you're in a stream, and this is not important at all, but I just want to say, you can see your past lives glimpse. You can glimpse the future. You can glimpse all sorts of things. Everything is in there. I just want to say this. What we glimpse tonight is really not important, but I just want to say this. Everything is in there. Everything. And that's why all these things are falling off one by one by one by one. And just embrace. I mean, you see, I'm sort of obviously already fallen off the cliff with many, many things, but I'm still normal, Angie. You see what I mean? I can still communicate. I've still got my wits with me, common sense and stuff like that. I just want to point this out. Some people are scared that when they end up with the stream, they will
Mm.
just be gaga. They will sort of completely lose the plot. They will be unable to do anything in on the physical. That is completely not true. Of course, there are many
Why do
things I choose not to do.
Yeah, why do I feel like
Please.
my brain's turning to mush then? I mean, it cannot think like it used to think. It used to be very efficient at thought and processing information, and now I just feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my brain cells, like I could have dementia or something. I mean, and that kind of scares me because I think, wow, all right, is this how it's going to be? And I don't want to think either. That's the interesting thing. People ask me a thinking question, what's the cause of this? Or, why this, why that? Like, I don't know, and I really don't care.
Well, this is a very good answer. There are so many things in life that people engage themselves with that absolutely have completely not important, a complete. I mean, waste. I said before there is no waste, but what I mean is just a waste of space to go into these things that are the way they are. I mean, it's just really, really what happens. But let me go back to your question, and I'm going to reframe it a little bit.
Mm.
You see, there are people who live in the environments where they're very, very active with their thoughts, attachment to the thoughts, very strong on that. And there are people who are less active with the thoughts and less, because of different
Right.
circumstances they live and the way they live in. So you are one of those people who were very, very active, all full out with the thoughts, with
Mhm.
attachment to the thoughts, nonstop, day and night, even when the working hours were, and for you, this change is obviously a much more drastic and much more shock to the system than to someone who is coming from a lesser identification, from a lesser attachment, from a lesser sort of a, and also you were always, which was part of your ego or image, or probably we're very proud of that. We're very
Oh,
proud of
yeah.
your you see what I mean? So
Mm,
you are losing a lot of your image from before, losing a lot, huge engagement, this huge pride in their engagement, in their efficiency, in their whatever. You can look back now and say all these things that I was so sort of, dealing with, and a lot of aspects that were really not something that I'm interested in at all anymore.
right.
Anymore. But you are, but the way you're identifying that is my brain is mush, because before you were just took so much pride in that aspect.
Yeah. It was problem solving mine. Perfect. It worked all the time. I mean, now I can't like
Now there is no interest in this sort of engagement. Let's put it this way: there is no interest in this sort of engagement. I can be asked a question: why is this like that? Why is it when this happens like this? And then I say, look, you know what? I absolutely couldn't give a. I'm not going to say the last word. You know what I mean? I could not, absolutely. To me, it is an absolute waste of time to even go there. And that is my
Mm,
attitude. And I'm completely comfortable with that. Who cares? I mean, there are people who do care, and please, I mean, I'm happy for them to go on and care about it. And if I really want to know, I will Google it and it will appear in a second. And I will know. This is something that I absolutely I mean, it's in basic aspect of my life that I have and need to know, that I'll look it up. You know what I mean?
mm,
But you see what I mean? It's what is talked about before. Really, it's a question of priorities and a question of the way we see ourselves. You cannot see yourself anymore as the Anjali there was. Efficient, hardworking,
right.
answering all the why questions, how, resolve it. You're not that Anjali anymore, and it is a loss of that Anjali.
Yeah.
On the other side, of course, you're gaining so much more because of many, many aspects of it.
But that's where I feel like I haven't yet made any gains. I mean, you may say I've stepped in the stream, I'm in the stream somewhere, but even even in some way, progress doesn't matter to me, but it does. It does and it doesn't. I don't know. It's like I can't even think that through anymore. I can't think through anything. But I feel like there's not the markers that I see other people experiencing. Therefore, it becomes this is back to what we started the conversation about today. Like how do you even know you're making progress? So if I have a practice that focuses here, I've been working that for years, decades, how would we know there's no progress? I mean, is it clear when you're making progress?
Start with the practical aspects of your life, okay? Start with that. Day living from step to step to step, from hour to hour. Is it very uncomfortable? Is it much more uncomfortable than before when you were
Mm,
full on employed and working out, working, 100% dedicating to mental, whatever, am I able to be more at peace with myself, more balanced, more sort of comfortable with what is, regardless of the outcome? Does it feel okay? Never mind other people. The
yeah,
only way we know what other people experience is by them talking about it, which is who knows, you know what I mean? Who cares?
right.
But just look at yourself, look at your life, hour to hour, day to day. What are you facing? Do you want to go back to where you were before?
Of course not. No. Mm-mm.
You see, is that one of the questions answered? You said, of course not. Why not? If that was so great and you're missing it so much.
I'm not missing it, but I feel like this is the only direction I can go in, but I just feel like I'm not going anywhere yet. Um, it's interesting.
You see, Angie, you just have still have a lot of judgments and very harsh judgments about what is happening. Even
Mm,
if we backroll this now to 20 minutes ago when you were talking about all the changes
mm,
that had been happening in your life in the last year or more, they are tremendous changes in a way, really, really big changes, really a big transformation happening. But you're judging it. It's not
mm,
enough. It's not good enough. It's not good for Angie. Anjali can do better. Some other people do better than Anjali. Why is
mm,
that? You know what I mean? You're trying to resolve this thing with the thoughts, with the aspects that you don't really want to be resolving with.
right.
And from the outside, from someone looking outside, and if you even later on, tomorrow, whenever, look at this live stream and listen to what you were saying about all the changes and all the aspects that have changed in your life, and it is tremendous. I mean, many people
Mm,
cannot make these changes in decades, not let alone in a year or two, or you know what I mean. But you see, judging it, still judging it, not enough, not good enough. There is still enough of that Anjali, that sort of is not happy with this
mm.
progress. She's comparing herself to some other people. It is not good enough. These other people have achieved more.
I guess I'm hoping for some internal progress. The external progress is always feels very easy to me. I mean, like I can make changes. It feels much easier, but the internal progress can't be
Angie,
forced.
external progress comes from inside. That is what we were talking before. And we were pointing out to other people listening to us that your progress has actually
Mm,
happened organically from the inside. It is not something that you imposed on yourself and suffered because of it. But all these things
mm,
have fallen off one by one by one in some sort of a natural progression. It started
mm,
inside and then it showed on the outside. It is always like that. It starts on the inside, and then when it's a natural progression, and then it shows on the outside. And that's why some people from the outside can say, "Oh my God, Angie! I mean, you've changed so much. Are you still the
mm.
same, Anjali?" Or but you say, "I don't. I'm not really aware that I've changed." You know what I mean? Okay.
Right.
Just all these expectations, and just try to sort of face them while you're sitting. Just detach. When you said before, I don't really care. I do care, but I don't really care about the outcome. That's it. That's it. That is really where it sits.
Yeah. It.
Whatever comes, it comes, Sanji. Whatever comes, it comes. You're on a way, and now just embrace whatever comes, it comes. And when it's something comes that you have to do something that will force you from the inside to do something, you will do it. And if not, you will just go on the way it is.
Mm,
Time is not a measure. It's really not, because time is just really a convention, on a physical level. Time is not a measure. It's, these are all stories, but from I can just say this, like, from looking at you from the outside, I can absolutely feel the changes and see the changes. That doesn't mean anything, but I just want to say that, you know,
mm,
we always sometimes, especially when judgments are still involved, and you were always a harsh person with judgments on yourself and maybe on others too, because you were harsh on yourself. It still lingers in certain ways, you know.
Sure. Hmm.
I was a very judgmental person myself, very, 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 very. I had an opinion about everything, and I would argue that opinion till death, you know what I mean, like all the way. And I would lecture everyone else who had a different opinion. And I would constantly complain to the people next to me who were not in line with what I thought was. My son got a lot of that. My mom got a lot of that. I mean, I just want to say, you know, like, and the rest. But I want to say, you know, I'm so thank you, whatever it is, that I'm not like that anymore. It is such a relief. Honestly, my God, it is such a relief because it was
Yeah.
such a need to be right, a need to convert everyone else to that right, you know, whichever was right, you know, to oh my God, it was exhausting.
Yeah, that's what I feel. It's exhausting to use words to argue anything.
Uh, it is. It is. Just let things be. I mean, let people
Mm,
be. Really, you know.
yeah. Let me check our chat box here and see if we have people. And we do not yet. So, yeah.
Look, people who embark on a spiritual, who are spiritual seekers, whatever we call ourselves, you know, it's just so many words. We already at a certain point, very close to going wherever we're going, and very close to leaving the karma, you know, leaving the judgments, leaving the attachment to the thoughts, leaving all these sorts of things, you know. If we can just be happy and embrace whatever stage we're at, whatever obstacles we face, if we can just open up to it and just embrace it and just relax about it and just let things, you know, go their own way, being philosophical, turning inwards, turning inwards. This is turning inwards. Whenever we can, just turning inwards, finding the breath. Whenever we can, finding stillness through the breath, turning inwards. And it all works. It all works. It all adds up. Sometimes you are impatient. I was impatient at the start. I was looking at the signs. There were no signs. I looked at
Mm.
those videos. These are the signs that you're progressing. I bloody had no signs at all. I thought, what the hell? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to stop looking at those videos. They just sort of make me feel really bad about what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I thought, forget about that, you know. And so you can go for a long time without any signs at all. And then all of a sudden, you have 100 signs. Or
Mm.
you can gradually add up signs and signs and signs, you know, one by one by one. It's all different. Depends on a person. It's all different. Every journey is different. But the worst thing we can do is judge it, compare ourselves, be unhappy, always not enough, no, always not that. We are here. We are spiritual seekers, so let's do it. Let's do it. Let's embrace it. What it's if it's hard, it's hard. Let's embrace it.
Did you find there was a lot of turmoil, like, through the process? Because I feel like things are in some ways, they're smoother because I've simplified, but in other ways, it just feels quite, like, I don't know. like the difference then between like smooth and not smooth has become more pronounced. And so that gap, when I fall into the not smooth, it feels way worse than it used to, if that makes sense.
Well, you've got a measuring stick that you didn't have before. You know what I mean?
True, but I also feel like some amount of like I'm suffering more in some ways on this since I've quit work. There's just a lot of turmoil going on. It goes in spells and cyclical kind of things. And I can make up a story about it. I can say that's clearing something or it's, cleansing this or that or but without the story, just the facts. That's what it feels like.
There are two things I want to say about this. Number one is when you were at work and engage 100% and engage even when you came home and engage on the weekends, there's no time to sort of be relieving any other sort of you don't give yourself any time to actually even be aware of anything that's sort of brewing, if you want, on a
Right.
deeper level,
Mhm.
because you're just always engaged on a surface level. Now, with the surface level has fallen off, and in your case, in a big way, because you lived for that surface level and you lived on that surface level.
Mhm.
Of course, now you're turning inwards and you're finding all these things in there that before you were never dealing with, you were not even aware because you were all completely engaged on that surface level. So and then you're experiencing some periods of stillness and calmness and all that, and then these other things are obviously, so there are more than one thing sort of come all together. And absolutely, number one, when you turn inwards, everything is what's in there. So things that before we were not even aware of or we never dealt with, but because we were engaged somewhere else, are here. You cannot escape them because they've turned inwards. So of
Gotcha.
course, absolutely, upheaval is much bigger because of that. Because everything that was on the outside before, focused outside, listening, watching this, that, thinking, remembering, blah blah blah, is now on the inside, and it's
Mm.
bloody so much of it that you were never even aware before. This is a big, big, big change. As I said once, like number one, there was a period when I cried a lot. I cried every day because I felt that there was so much unshed tears inside me, a pain that was not relieved. And I did not care, could not care less what it was about and all that, but it was a lot. And there was a period where I cried every day and every day. And I embraced it. I embraced it. I actually somehow organically understood that there is so much pain and unshed tears, things that happen in this lifetime, maybe even in previous lifetime, whatever, I don't care. It doesn't matter. They were
Mm.
not relieved. They were not dealt with. I never cried about those things. I just went on and on and on, being focused on the surface level, never touched these things, never dealt with them, never cried about the pain and whatever it was that I should have, maybe I could have, but I didn't, because I was always focused on the surface level, on the mental engagement, on being efficient, on being that die
Mm.
that was just, whatever that was. But
Mm.
now, turn inwards, my God, there was a lot. There was a lot. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And I thought it was okay. Completely okay. I just cried. Did not stop it in any way. Did not try to interfere with it whatsoever. Did not question it whatsoever. It
And the
was
people
there, so
around
it
you?
needed.
The people around you just like
Look,
she's crying
at that
again?
stage, I probably already lived on my own.
Mm.
But even if it happened, I want to say this, it happened already at the time that even if I was somewhere, and even if I had someone close to me, I wouldn't have stopped myself. I would just cry. And if they asked me, I would say, it is just so much I need to cry about. I don't know what it is, but it needs to come out,
Mm.
and it's just coming out. And please, it is not nothing to you with any of people around me or just to make them know. Sometimes people are people around you worry that it's about them, that
Right.
it's a certain
Mhm.
situation that you, it is completely not. Completely not. But once we turn inwards and focus on that, there is a lot, Angie, there is a lot that needs to be relieved, that needs to be accepted. You see, a lot of these
Mm.
things were never even accepted because we were so busy in staying on that mental level, keeping up that image. My image was never of the one being soft, crying, being despondent. Never.
Right.
My image was
Mhm.
always the opposite. I was always efficient, outgoing, even, you know what I mean, in command, in complete control of, you know, you see what I mean?
Mm.
This, when I turned inwards, I had a lot, Angie. I had a lot that I never stopped to sort of deal with it because I was always so focused on that surface image that I was upkeeping at any cost.
Right.
At any cost.
Mhm.
It wasn't always easy. It was difficult too. You know what I mean? Let's understand this. And once turned outward, inwards, it was, oh, it was a lot. It was a lot, and it took a lot of crying,
Mm.
and even some particular things came out very strongly that just, but that's how it is. And that's a sign of being focused inwards more and more and more and more. And that particular image that you had before, that you were upholding, we're all doing that, we're upholding that image, is crumbling. That
Mm.
image is crumbling. And that's what allows you to sort of face all this that was accumulating on the inside, accumulating over decades and maybe even lifetimes, Angie, okay?
Hmm. So there's an
And I
end to
just want to
this?
say, there is, absolutely. I
Mm.
came to an end and I cried a lot, and I cried for
Mm.
quite some time, every day. And I didn't even notice when it stopped. You see what I mean? I embraced it completely. So when I cried, and one day it stopped. And after a
Mm.
little while, I thought, wow. I said, I mean, I'm not crying anymore. Like, you know what I mean? I haven't even
Right. Mhm.
registered as I just one day I sort of noticed that I'm not crying anymore.
Mm.
But if I cry tomorrow or today or whatever, I cry. You know what I mean? Like, obviously there is something in there that needs a relief, that needs to be embraced. Embraced. Oh, you see what I did now? I tried so much to get out. I was like pointing. You see, this was one of my habits that I had, and I don't know who it was, whether it was my son or someone who used to, like hit me on the fingers. He said, "Just stop doing that. That is so horrible," But what I mean is, embrace, embrace the crying, embrace the pain that is still there. By embracing it, you're relieving it. You're making it part of the
Right.
stream. It disintegrates.
I thought it was interesting that you said there's no reason to go back and figure out where it came from, because that feels like a mental struggle too, to go back and sort through that. I don't even know half the time where it comes from.
No, but Angie, it's really not important.
Mm. Well,
It's
my
really not.
other,
You're,
my my
yeah,
surface ego would say it is important. Figure it out, sort it out, get to the bottom of it.
kick it in the butt. Kick it in the butt. Say f off. You know what I mean? It's not important. It, Angie, it's not important. There are
Mm.
so many, 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 many things that accumulate through life and lifetimes that we have not dealt with when we were completely focused on the outwards. So
Mm.
many, Angie. I mean, what do you want to spend another lifetime trying to
Mm-mm.
figure all these out with your mental sort of jugglery, and you know what I mean? Do you want that?
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
really?
No. Mm.
No, of course not. F off. I mean, honestly, whenever this ego interferes in such a way, just say, take a break. You know what I mean?
Right? Mm.
Look, let's just hope we're making some sense, isn't it? Does this resonate with you in any way? That we
It
are.
does, and I really hope that it helps a lot of other viewers, honestly. And I hope to receive more questions. We both want questions from you. Um, I think Di here is committed to like practical problems, relieving the kinds of things that you can't read about in books or get resolution from. Just practical problems, questions, comments. There's a lot of us out
You see,
there, and I
Anjali,
think we all feel
you see,
kind of
Anjali,
alone.
I developed this obsession with practical because number one, I've always been a hands-on practical person, but number two,
Mm,
when I decided that I want to, in earnest, start my spiritual whatever we call it, and I watched the videos and I read and again, hours a day and hours and hours, but
mhm,
I could almost never, ever, anywhere find these practical things that will tell me this is exactly like
right.
minute by minute by minute. I mean, or whatever, practical. It's all this waxing lyrical almost,
Mm,
about all these things, which is all nice and it warms you up and it's so lovely, but it does not move you anywhere in your own spiritual development or whatever
right.
we want to
Mhm.
call it. And it took me ages to find something, and I did, to find something from a few different people that dropped here and there some little bits and pieces of how you deal with this when it comes in actual life, you know what I mean? And then I put it together, and you know what I mean, and I started experiencing some movement. This is why my
Mm,
obsession, there are so many videos, channels, books, and all these where people can
mm.
access anything about the theory and this and that they want. They can do it forever in a day. But I think we lack the practical. That's why
Yeah.
you and
Yep.
me are calling it practical awakening.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, viewers out there, we want everyone, please join us, comment. We're looking at some different alternatives at some point down the road. If there's a tech person out there who is interested in working with us, please reach out to Di. We definitely could look at a different platform or something that we would have viewers on live with real questions. I mean, we just need to make context somehow. So for the meantime, if you could just leave questions either in the comment box or in the chat box when we're live, we'd love to talk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable if they have a question that is not necessarily a practical question. I really want to point
Mm,
this out. It is just the way the things are and the way that we're sort of feeling about all this, and also on our channel there are already a lot of videos that are really videos that talk about things, you know what I mean? So
mm,
anyone who wants to more listen to it or watch or even read, there is always descriptions, like and everything is detailed in there. They can go and look at the channel, there is plenty of that. But this is more dedication to how we deal with this in a practical life, hour to hour, day to day, and stuff like that. I think, Angie, that actually there was something appearing on the screen. Can you have a look at the chat box? I don't know if I'm wrong, but I thought I saw something, whatever that was.
there is one. Awaken Abundance says, I feel kind of like a voyeur here because I have no real questions, but I'm learning so much from your dialogue. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. I'm thank you a lot. And I hope that you did take to heart what I said just a minute ago, that I really don't want to make anyone feel like voyeur in a way. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable if they have questions that are not necessarily practical. And I'm so happy that this resonates with you in some way.
Thank you for joining us tonight, everyone.
And now I think, Angie, we will leave it with that. What do you say?
Great. I'm out of words.
We will leave it with that. Thank you all. Embrace you all. And see you again
Next week.
next week. Same time, same place.
Yep.
Ta.
Thanks.